You are now tuned into Check This Out News. We connect the streets. So we've got Jesse Jackson on the line, and I want to say thank you for joining us on Check This Out News. I wanted to get your thoughts on, obviously, what's happening through these white supremacist movements, how they're impacting technology, such as what transpired in Charlottesville. I wanted to ask you how President Trump compares to past presidents in handling such a sensitive matter like Charlottesville.
Well, President Trump is one of the worst in responding. Social media is a vehicle. The moral content will be determined by the user. You can use social media to unite, you get to divide and to conquer. Secondly, Mr. Trump, by responding with a fear of the Klan, the neo-Nazis, and the white supremacists, showed an absence of presidential leadership, narrative-focused leadership. He looks at America through a keyhole and not through a door. The fact is, those marches should have had better protection in the first place. Certainly his slow response was a way of expressing his thanks for the support of the supremacists and his unwillingness to challenge them publicly. He will not challenge the supremacists, nor will he challenge Putin. One, I think he is afraid of. The other one, because it's his base. The other one, we do not yet know quite why the Putin is off the agenda.
So it's safe to say then, Reverend Jackson, that you believe he recognizes these groups as a significant part of his base? So
much so until Bannon is in his White House, one of their voices. So much so until Steve Miller, those who have to write the speech, were inside the White House. In the 60s, when Wallace was engaging in this race-based violent behavior, at least he was a Southern governor, and Bill Connor was a sheriff, safety officer. But now Trump stands at the precipice of American power as its president, slow to speak out on Nazi behavior, were armed and carrying weaponry, with shields and batons. This is a very provocative act, and we deserve more security, and they deserve more enlightened leadership than they've gotten from this president.
Interesting. Why do you think presidents always seem to be late for incidents like this? Even 9/11 was a bit late from my perspective, but is that just a slow response to us, the situation?
I guess response time does matter. When the Little Rock situation occurred in 1957, and there was an appeal to the White House, Eisenhower responded. He didn't take the leadership. He responded by nationalizing the National Guard. He did respond. Johnson did respond, but Trump has been slow to respond. As a matter of fact, Trump has helped to create this climate, trying to discredit President Obama's by virtue of his birth, which was a wrong assumption. He is an American by birth. He tried to discredit and undercut him and appeal to people who had the most disdain for him. He said the Mexican judge did not have the qualification to dispense justice because he was Mexican-American. In the Central Park 5, he wanted to condemn them to death for raping a white woman. They were wrongfully convicted. When they were set free, he still was against them. The banning of the Muslims and the wall in Mexico, there's a pattern of narrow nationalism in the global world. It does not serve America well.
Reverend Jackson, what do you think the difference between the alternate right and alternate left extremist groups are for our listeners? Because I feel like most Americans still really don't know exactly what it is.
Well, Dr. King said he was an extremist for justice, an extremist to bring down walls, willing to go to jail and sacrifice for it, willing to die for it. But he was willing to fight nonviolent, to open up doors. On the right, they're willing to fight to keep doors closed. The closed doors have been recently opened, and that is the difference. And they believe in white, male, fake Christian supremacy. They identify the Klan as their allies. So they agree with the Nazi movement in Germany, which, of course, triggered the killing of 55 million people. So there is an extreme 180 degrees difference between the agenda of the two. And so for Trump to equate one with the other is a sin. and is an inaccurate reading of history.
Do you feel like with the galvanizing, so to speak, of this base, especially from a neo-Nazi perspective, I mean, I understand he has to. I think when the term Nazi comes up, it's a very strong reaction for everybody, obviously in the Jewish community across the board. Do you feel as if he is going to be able to reel this in, or do you anticipate things getting worse?
Well, he has not grown to the stature of a president who represents all of America's people. He still is running on his narrow, loser campaign base. After all, Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes. You add that to the votes of the other candidates who were running against him. Add that to black voter suppression. He lost substantially. Yet by technicalities, he's the winner. But he is not up to the job. Again, he is not up to the job. And that's why the big issue for us comes now. It's not just to react to this band of Nazis and supremacists, but there's a big election in Virginia come November. We send a rainbow push, hashtag 100,000 Virginia votes. We can vote with a passion. We can determine the winner in November at the polls, and have more of us than them if we, in fact, were stand and vote and fight back.
Absolutely. Now, first it was Merck CEO Kenneth Frazier to step down from Trump's Manufacturing Council. Now I know your friend Brian Krzanich, CEO of Intel, along with Kevin Plank at Under Armour, are planning to leave the council following Trump's late response to violence. Do you suspect there will be other companies leaving?
Well, I do. I think in part, Brian Krzanich has like a great streak of decency in him. But his workplace constituency is a global constituency. It is a multiracial, multicultural workforce, the multiracial, multicultural constituency. So these guys cannot reconcile being global and following Trump's narrow race-based nationalism. So I'm glad that Krzanich took their leadership, Mr. Frazier from Merck. It's interesting that Trump only called out Frazier from Merck on his Twitter and then attacked the whites. Again, it's a pattern. And I think the pattern is, I think what's missing as I watch TV dialogue is that suppose he had said the right thing, but keeps doing the wrong thing. Sessions was able to take monies in the Department of Justice from monies designed to pursue violent, militarized white nationalists and shift that money to pursuing colleges that support affirmative action. Suppose he said the right thing, he kept doing the wrong thing. He said the right thing and then keeps removing consent decree orders from police departments that show patterns of racial violence toward black people. It's not enough for him. You can't untweet this ball of racial hatred with one stroke of the pen. He has built upon a body of painful division. Let me say, you build a wall, and on the other side of the wall, the people you don't know. You're ignorant, fear, and hatred, and violence. When the walls come down, you can build bridges. And that's the dream, is to build a bridge. You could not have the business and mess that's where I am today. The Titans and Nashville, if the walls had not come down. You couldn't have Nissan and Toyota in Mississippi and the Delta. If those big cotton if the walls had not come down. You could not have the CNN in Atlanta if the walls had not come down. Jimmy Carter and Clinton could have left the dark fields of the South to become president had not the walls come down. When the walls come down, we'll all do better. We didn't know how good baseball could be because everybody could play.
It's interesting you say the walls. What do you think the perception of America and President Trump is abroad in earnest? I mean, I know you travel the world consistently. Do you feel as if these walls that we're talking about building extend to other extreme parts of the world just overall?
Well, he's weakening America by putting America in isolation. Our European allies cannot depend upon him. They think he cares more for Putin than he does for them. South Central and Latin America, two-thirds of our hemisphere speak Spanish. English is the minority language in our hemisphere. To build a wall between us and Mexico, South Central, Latin America is a third. These are our neighbors, and our eternal neighbors, linked by land. They look at us askance. People who think globally do not understand how America get trapped with a leadership that's so local and so provincial.
How do you feel, Reverend Jackson, extreme groups are using technologies like online websites and social media to recruit and spread their agenda?
Well, it's kind of according to what you read. Clearly, there is a body of people spreading fake, bad, malicious, and immoral news. But there's another body of people who are also faking connecting the best of news. And so it's a struggle. It's a struggle. It's a tug of war for the soul of America. And therefore, you cannot have a sideline position. You must, in fact, hold on to the rope of hope and go forward, not give in and go back by fear. You cannot assume that anything is static. We can win this war. We must teach our children apps and codes. Teach them stock market games. Teach them financial literacy. Teach them to love one another. Teach them to learn to live together, not just die apart. Teach them. At the end of the day, these Googles and YouTubes and Facebooks and all that, these are vehicles, but the moral content must be put in there by human beings who care. People care that you know, but people really want to know that you care. People care that you know, but people really want to know that you care. We must care for each other.
Definitely. Now, I know tech giants like Google, GoDaddy, been caught in the crosshairs of these white supremacist groups and freedom of speech. Now, what's your perspective, your message to the tech community in taking a stance on these things, Reverend Jackson?
All of them should leave Trump. And if they go together, he can punish no one. We've seen Brian Kucinich take the leadership in Intel, but we've seen Under Armour take leadership. And so with leadership out there, and we've seen Merck and Frazier take leadership, so others should fall in line on principle. Do it, but sometimes you do things just because it's the right thing to do.
Should supremacist groups like the neo-Nazis, KKK, Antifa be considered terrorist groups, and what differentiates them from someone like ISIS?
Well, there's no differentiation when they drive cars into people and kill them, whether they're in Virginia, whether they're in Europe, when they plan to kill innocent people and are willing to blow up as Tim McVeigh did in Oklahoma City. There is no difference. All of them have a view that is their way or the highway. You conform to what they believe or they will kill you. That is decadent and degenerate. That is not civilized behavior. We must fight for civility over this kind of iniquity.
Definitely. Now, I just want to switch gears real quick, Reverend Jackson, and just ask you about diversity in the tech community. Now, I know you've been outspoken in this area. You've inspired others, including Venus Williams, to demand jobs for, black, brown, and women. Are we seeing improvements from 5 years ago, in your opinion?
We are 5 years ago, but it is much too slow. It is much too slow. You still have unemployment around 2% in the tech industry, around 2%. HP now has 4 African Americans on their 2 boards. Apple has 1. Microsoft has 1. Facebook has none. Twitter now has 1. So you get 1 and none, 1 and none, 2 and 0. That does not reflect the population. None does it reflect our capacity. We must keep applying pressure to get jobs vertically and horizontally. They told me my first week when they couldn't find engineers in UCLA and USC. They can't get them coming out because they're not going in unless they go to play ball. The engineers are coming from HBCU. No one produces black engineers come from North Carolina A&T, and then Morgan State, and then Hampton, and then Howard. And so they're now building a pipeline. And one thing that Brian Kucinich and Intel did put up $300 million. A part of it to make the company look like America. The second part to make loans, small loans available. The second is, of course, to build a pipeline between Silicon Valley and HBCU, and that's a good thing. What do we represent? Black American, brown American. What do we represent? Market, money, talent, and location. When doors open, we'll all get better.
Do you feel as if we'll see any greater improvements during this presidency?
Well, not like this, not coming from the White House. But the great changes of life never came from White House down. They always came from your house and my house up. The president in 1955 didn't change his mind. Rosa Parks changed her mind. As we saw for the right to vote, that did not come from the White House down. It came from the road of Alabama, bottom up. And so I would say no matter what is happening in the White House, then your house and my house must be a house of dignity. Use all your leverages. One leverage is the right to vote. The leverage is economic strategic investment. Another leverage is education. Strong minds break strong chains. Another is to build coalitions, multiracial coalitions. We as a people have an awful lot in common.
Absolutely. Can I ask you what your favorite mobile app is, Reverend Jackson?
I ain't gonna tell you.
Got him! Got him!
Do you got